Hello, greetings, and happy Monday. Welcome to Midwife Monday here. Running a little bit behind today. It was an interesting weekend. Happy belated Mother's Day to those of you who that applies to, depending on where you live and all of that. We had a very nice Mother's Day. I did. It was very nice. Let's see. I got this beautiful necklace from my daughter Tallulah. She also has kind of a mini one, which is cute. Yes, happy belated Mother's Day. I got several bars of chocolate, my favorite. My kids know me well. That's an easy enough gift, right? I think I got, let's see, a really beautiful notebook, a leather notebook from my daughter Amelia. Some coffee. They also know me well. Some flowers. Some really cute cards and more chocolate. Yeah, I think that's it. And some babysitting time from my son. It was a great day. And we got to spend it with, or at least part of it, with my mom and dad, which was kind of cool. You know, I realize not a lot of people probably get to spend Mother's Day with their actual mother, especially when they're adults. But I did, and we had a nice dinner and just get together. Rumi has not been feeling well, so that's probably why I've been running around late today. Nothing major, just the first time in his little 6-month life that he doesn't feel that great. And I don't really know why. He does have a couple of teeth. I don't think this is teething related, just because he was so nonchalant with the other teeth coming in. I don't think that's what's going on. But it started just this weekend, actually on his 6-month birthday. So wasn't much of a half birthday for him. But he's been comfortable-ish, just nursing like nonstop, like pretty much not leaving me at all. So even for this couple hours here, I'm hoping that he just sleeps. So he's been nursing a ton, not really sleeping, and just had a little slight fever, but no other signs of anything. So he's been obviously eating and, you know, doing all the basics. So I don't know. I don't know about you, but when my kids go through those periods, I really chalk it up to growing. You know, that might sound crazy, but no one else has been sick. And I wouldn't even call it sick. It's just like under the weather, not feeling himself, not full of his normal laughs and smiles, and just kind of laying low and kind of out of it. And I remember with my son Rune, who's 12, he was the first kid of mine that I noticed he would have these under the weather times and come out of it feeling different, or at least the energy surrounding him being different. So I think Rumi is of a lot of the same makeup as Rune. And it's always been like a 3-day thing, like a 3-day laying low, not feeling well, just kind of sleeping a lot. And I really do think it's getting downloads, you know, like some people, some kids, especially nowadays, are way more connected, I think, to, you know, source than many of us are or were when we were that age, perhaps. And these little periods of, you know, kind of sickness and kind of not are an opportunity for them to upgrade themselves, which is really kind of cool if you think about it like that. And, you know, if it was a major sickness, maybe I would not be thinking of it that way, but I know he's fine. And he's probably accessing all kinds of new skills and growing and, you know, more superhuman powers. I know he already has some. So Jason and I were joking this morning about it because, you know, he's on the mend, and it seems like the upgrade is getting towards completion. You know, when your computer needs the update and it takes the time that it takes there to go through its workings. Same with kids. They just require upgrades, and people, of course, adults do too. So I think that's a comforting way to view those times when our bodies are obviously struggling to do something, And I think, again, it's like just your perspective and maybe your belief system. Certainly there is that physical component to, whatever it is, not feeling well, or if you're an adult, obviously you can like put words to how you're feeling. Cold, maybe you have a headache, right? Stomach kind of stuff. I mean, all of those times I've noticed are opportunities, especially when you're an adult, because you probably don't get sick very much. I don't. And so when I do, it feels pretty meaningful. So this was Rumi's first upgrade, and I don't think it was a coincidence that it happened on his half birthday. So yeah, that's the long Mother's Day weekend version here. So I'll be excited to get back to him, of course. It's feeling like that's the best thing I can do right now, is just hold him and let him nurse and cuddle and, make his final few percents of this upgrade. And I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine tomorrow. That's usually the way this works. It's something about the 3 days. 3 is such an important and auspicious number. I mean, they all are. They all have meaning. But 3, I think, is what I've noticed for these little things they go through. So today's the 3rd day. He should be good to go tomorrow, and I'm sure he'll wake up smiling and laughing and probably have some new skills. Maybe he'll start talking. Just kidding. I don't think he's probably going to, at least not outwardly, but I don't doubt he'll be, upgraded with what he needs, with the newest software to be on this planet in a conscious way. All right. Well, welcome. Some new people, some every week people. Both are much appreciated. If you are new, or even if you're not, if you want to comment, if you can, I think you have to be logged in. So if you want to comment and just say hello or say where you're watching from, that's always fun. Hello. Hello. And if you have a question or topic, that's cool. I get to them often, and then once in a while I don't, if the conversation kind of takes off, but it's all good. This is pretty free flow, not really a huge agenda here, just kind of talk about what comes in. I'm going to pull a card, as I sometimes do, and we'll just take it from there. It's pretty relaxed. If there are midwifery or birth questions, though, that's obviously the place. And I think today we'll talk about breech if people want to. Megan suggested that earlier, and I think that's a fine idea unless something else comes forth. Cool, New Jersey. I'm from New York myself originally, so that's my neck of the woods. Okay, so I'm going to pull a card. I'm going to show the deck just because every week I kind of do. Why not? This woman totally deserves all the credit, and if you want to go get a deck, you totally should. So it's Roots and Wings by Kat Riles. I really love her artwork, and I'll just pull a random card and show it to you. Cool. Kindreds. No accident. If you are watching here with me. Yeah, so I can look in the book there, but I think we all know what this means, at least here at the moment, right? Kindred souls. You can see she's got some like root symbology there, and many of the cards do, hence the name Roots and Wings. I really love her depiction of roots. And of course, we've got the sun kind of lighting the way. So super cool. Let's see if the little booklet has anything more to say. And Kindred's kind of speaks for itself. The closest of friends that reflect your goodness and values, those you trust with your all and let you be you. A reminder to give those relationships time and space in your life. So whatever that means to you today, if you've got kindreds in your life, I would agree, just, from a general point of view, that we are needing those relationships right now more than ever. And I've been just sitting with like where those come from. And I don't know that I'm going to completely launch into that now, but having thoughts about community, and I think kindreds is, that's who you'd want to make community with, right? So open-ended, just something I've been thinking about with moving to a new place and reflecting on how I've seen, from my perspective, the community or lack thereof that's been here in our home for the last decade. Without sounding blamey, I mean, we all take part or we don't in the construct of community. But on a whole, I think the idea probably needs some more careful consideration and revisiting in most communities, like in most locations. That's the word I should be using, locations. Because we all have a location, but do we have a community? And do we even know what that means? And honest, I don't know that I do know what that means sometimes. In the context of birth, I feel like I understand it better and it's a feeling to me. But in a more general sense, especially as the world is going this way and many of us are wanting to go this way with our kindreds, like who are they and how can we really support each other? And is community, really just the people that live near you? That's the definition I think we've all been going with for, lack of a better one. But I think even this, the silly YouTube thing is a great example of another kind of community, and one that might even be stronger, because I would bet that many of us here are kindreds and we're on the same page without a whole lot of investigation or discussion around it, right? Like we've all gravitated towards being here together, whether it's birth or, mothering, and in a location that's just so much harder to do. So I've been struggling with that because even people that I may have considered community here are making very different choices than we are. And they're not people, we would want to live in community with, past living in the same location. So I think the world is throwing us, what's the expression? It's just like throwing us all for a loop as far as community goes. We're being asked to really think about what that means, feel what it means, and possibly have to go out and either find it or create it. And location is no longer the best definition. So anyway, that was kind of a little monologue on the card, but that's what I'm feeling is yes, go for the kindreds wherever they are, form whatever you need to form. And if they're not kindreds, then they're not, right? And maybe they're friends or maybe they're acquaintances, but it takes a special person to be a kindred soul to yourself. Oh, sweet. Hello, everybody. It's so fun reading your messages. Lauren, hello. Out for a walk. Yeah, and the where will we end up seems to be everybody's question right now. So maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but so many people, I feel like I'm just talking to people all the time that aren't like there yet. They aren't where they want to be. They don't even know where that is necessarily, but it's like this heightened sense of anticipation around where we will all land and what that means. So I'm right there with you. I mean, I feel like I do know where we're going to land at the moment, but yet I also don't. And we're always having like different opportunities or ideas of things come in. And so that's really cool because the possibilities feel endless, which is a really nice place to be. But, it's like we have the now, which of course it is the most important, as we all are taught and know, but yet there's this planning going on right now for most of us to figure out what the next step looks like. And I've taken it as far as like, okay, our next step, like in the next couple months. And then there's next steps in the next couple of years and how those things might differ. They might not be the same place, but I'm trying not to get ahead of myself either. It's just one step at a time, following the signs, following the energy, letting yourself be led rather than defining all of these things. Do I have any potential kindreds that I already know of? Yeah, it's looking that way. It's looking that way for sure. And as I said on a podcast, I'm super looking forward to like making a more formal announcement. And I know there will be people, that I've met virtually, I'm sure, that are at least in the vicinity. So I'm super excited about that. But as I shared, we're kind of waiting on the last details for this move. And I'm holding it all as this is what will happen. This is the path we're on. But, also, I don't know anything. So I'll let you know when I do for sure. Okay, well, card pulled. Check. Talk about community. No, I didn't plan that. Yeah, me too, Jessica. Obviously. And I'm being so sincere because how could I not be? But this community, indie birth community, that's grown so much over the last bunch of years through the school and just people coming in is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I feel just so grateful that even personally, I can share, I can speak openly with what's on my heart, what's my truth. And there will always be people, even in this community, that maybe they don't resonate. That's fine. If they really don't, then they'll go, right? But I feel really grateful that I have a safe space to put the important things to me out there. And, that's a huge aspect, I think, of forming community. Obviously, right now is like there are some major hot topics. And for better or for worse, you're either on the same page as someone or you're not. And, I don't think we have to let that divide us beyond what's reasonable. But, there certainly is a level of reason there just so that we can be supported and feel safe speaking and, sharing with these things. So we are glad you're here. And I'm glad all of you are here. Birth topics welcome. I can totally blab about breech birth a little bit at least. We do have many resources though, I feel like, or at least a few. There's a podcast I did a bunch of years ago on breech birth. And if you haven't listened to that and you're into the whole topic, I do think that's a good place to start because if I remember correctly, it's essentially for women who may have a breech baby. And again, it was a while ago, but I'm pretty sure I talked about just reasons for babies being breech. I think that's a huge thing for a woman to figure out. So I know this is Midwife Monday, but I still think the most important question is, why do you think your baby is in this position? That's a question I ask as the midwife. And so the podcast goes through some possibilities there because there's a lot of possibilities from, purely physical things to more spiritual things to big old question mark because sometimes we just have no idea. But the best person to tune in and figure out what's needed is the mom. And that's such a radical perspective. I mean, I don't think it is, but it is out in the world, right? How many posts out there on social media have you seen with this kind of stuff? Like, oh, my baby is breech. Can I have a vaginal birth? And it's a very normal question, but it's really up to the woman to figure out with her baby if there's something going on that maybe needs even minor attention. So by minor attention, I mean maybe a chiropractic adjustment would be helpful, right? Down to the more major interferences and interventions like an ECV. That's a procedure where somebody actually uses their hands from the outside to physically turn a baby from the outside to a C-section, So there's definitely more interference with breech, but it has to be something a woman consents to and believes is best. And I definitely don't think that all women carrying breech babies, especially at term, should have a vaginal birth. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they don't want that. Maybe they don't think it's safe. Maybe there's just something else going on that we couldn't understand. But certainly it should be an option for anybody that thinks it is. And of course, that changes a lot of people's plans at the last minute because their provider, their midwife, their doctor even may not support vaginal breech birth and or may just not have the skills. So, they're told that their only option is surgery. That's a cool story, Jill. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. So, your baby didn't turn until your mom came, or the stars aligned, or, whatever reason you as the woman think is the reason. And I've seen, of course, all kinds of prenatal breech, and very few wind up actually birthing that way. So we could also just reflect on the fact that prenatal breech presentation, even at term, is not as weird, not as rare, even though the statistics are, I think, like 2 to 4%, I think, at term. That's not very many, but depends, how many births, I guess, you're seeing all of the time. So, maybe it's just more common in the prenatal period and there's either something to be done or there's not. And again, that comes back to the woman. So I've worked with women who, have said, yeah, my baby's breech. I'm not worried about it. And we go through all of the reasons, we go through all the possibilities, we go through all the ways that they could work with that if they choose to. And there have always been women, and I imagine hopefully always will be, at least a small percentage would say, it's fine. I'm not caught up in either way. I'll birth the baby whatever way it comes out. And then there are women that are definitely interested and curious in turning a baby, turning their own babies. So, they do all the things at home. They're lying on the slant boards. They're doing moxa. They're doing chiropractic because either, they feel pressured, which definitely is a lot of women, to get the baby to turn, or maybe just instinctively they want to help their baby do that. So again, I feel like it's so personal. And me, myself, as, a birthing woman, I've never had a baby in the breech position at any point that I can recall. So even in pregnancy, palpating, it's just never something any of my babies have chosen. And to be a real birth nerd, I'm not sad about that, but I would have liked to experience a breech birth in a lot of ways. I had a friend years ago, my dear friend Sarah, who is no longer on this earth, but her, I want to say, I can't remember if it was her 5th or 6th baby, but she had a breech baby at home by herself. And it's a cool story because she had had several babies by herself at home, and we became friends. And Margot was also friends with her. And we went down to see her in Phoenix when she was pregnant with this baby. And it was like the only time that she probably ever had anyone touch her belly. I think her first was a hospital birth, but anyway, she was really into free birth. So she had us over just as friends, and then also was like, hey, will you guys feel my belly? And she was just about due. And we felt her belly, and, the baby felt pretty breech, if I recall, but she was just like, yeah, it's fine. I'm not worried. And she birthed the baby that way. And she said it was her easiest and quickest birth. So I think that's a great story. And it's something I recall a lot, especially because she had had a bunch of babies. I think when it's your first baby, if it were me, there would definitely be other things to consider. And even as a midwife, if it's someone's first baby, I don't think anyone wants to be cocky about breech. And that's something that there's always a line, right? Like there's always a line you could cross, and it's all about the balance. I think breech can be normal. I don't think it is actually normal for every mom and baby, just depending on all the circumstances we chatted a little bit about. And breech births are great until they're not. So if everything is super smooth, then you don't do anything. You just watch and you know what you're seeing. And those are the experiences I have had. And I haven't had a ton, but they've all been like totally textbook. But I'm always cautious not to let that make me too confident or, again, cocky about that, because certainly if a baby does need help in a breech birth, you had better know what to do. So yeah, it's one of those things that I think we definitely need a regaining of confidence about collectively. But then there are always the cases that are more complicated. And if a baby is breech for, maybe the baby has an anomaly or something, and maybe the parents don't know, and that baby, may be breech for that reason and not participate as much or as well in the birth process. And that could potentially create some major problems. So one rule of thumb I like, and again, there's a lot to learn, right? Somebody mentioned Dr. Stu's workshop. Yeah, of course. Dr. Stu, I don't know if he's teaching separately right now from Rixa and David Hayes. I don't know, but they're all awesome. Like any opportunity you could get to learn from any of them, you would definitely want to take. And I haven't done either of those hands-on. I've done the, online versions and watched their lectures 3 billion times and watched the practice sessions. And, you can never get enough if you're interested in and wanting to learn that. You can never get enough. And these are people that are absolute experts, right? And I'm sure, they're still learning. So where was I going with that? So one of the most simple recommendations, and again, go do a lot of learning, but is just being mindful of the kind of labor pattern that it is. So when I attended my first breech birth alone, or as the primary midwife, which kind of was alone, but anyway, I had, and I still do, because I'm not an experienced breech practitioner. I wouldn't call myself that at all. I had very solid boundaries around what seemed appropriate for me with the experience that I have. So to that, I mean, the labor should unfold obviously naturally and should progress normally, and you should not be confused about what's going on. So the stories I've heard where breech can sometimes get more complicated, a lot of the times, and of course not always, but a lot of the time, the signs were maybe there, just the labor is wonky and complicated and isn't progressing or stops and starts and, that kind of stuff. So if you're super experienced, perhaps you've seen those and, you've learned different lessons there. But kind of as a rule of thumb for a more novice person that attends breech births, I would defer to that. So as to not get myself or, a mom and baby in a situation where they were going to need a lot, or, you have a baby that isn't descending well, or, kind of any of the more nightmarish breech situations, which there certainly are. And, I don't mean to tell you to go read those stories. I'm just saying, if you need to balance your, breech birth is always perfect and beautiful. If you need that balance, it's out there. And I'm not encouraging anyone to scare themselves, but just to be realistic, right? Because birth in general works really awesomely, and breech birth works well too. But sometimes, sometimes it's just a plain old surprise. And that's not happened to me actually as a midwife. Although I had the opposite happen. I had a mom I was supporting. I think it was her 10th baby or her 11th baby. She had quite some babies, and she had never had a breech baby before. And all of her labors, if I recall, were pretty easy breezy, 4 to 6 hours kind of thing. So with this baby, the baby was breeched to our best of abilities in her pregnancy. I don't think she opted for ultrasound to confirm that, but we were as sure as we could be. And having had a lot of babies, I think she confirmed that. It felt different to her. She had all head down babies before. And her labor was so strange. We rushed there pretty much. And I think it went on for like 24 hours. So the baby came out head first is the short version. And that's the theory there anyway. I'll never know. She'll never know, but I'm pretty sure that was her theory as well, that the baby was trying to figure it out during the labor and maybe, got a certain way in. I don't know. Not too far in, not too far in with a butt in there, but enough to maybe try it out, or who knows? Who knows why babies make the choices they do? So, Lauren, that is my one story. I have not witnessed a surprise breech, but I certainly know midwives that have, and, no judgment. It's definitely something I think can happen. And in this last year, even, I think there were 2 moms who it was really hard to tell. So I'm fairly experienced at palpating, as you might imagine, after all these years. And sometimes you just don't know. It's just confusing. And I remember with this one mom, it was last fall, I just couldn't tell. Was the baby breech, or was it just posterior with a very extended head? And I mean, I went as far as to draw what I was feeling, draw it somewhere so I could remember. And then I took the baby doll and the pelvis kind of thing, and I was trying all the positions with the baby doll and trying to figure out, if it was this, then what would that feel like exactly? And where would I be hearing heart tones? Because it was definitely challenging. And the mom herself didn't have a lot of certainty. In fact, she was the one that had said to me initially when I walked in that day, I think the baby might be breech. So maybe she planted that idea in my head. I don't know. But it definitely was strange feeling. And it felt like that for a couple visits in a row. So I think around 36 weeks, she got a really quick ultrasound, and not breech, just very posterior. That was my other option. So, I say, definitely ultrasound is an option and should be offered, because the guy that we have here is super quick, and really you should be able to tell position by ultrasound in a matter of minutes. So we're not talking about an extended look with that technology. We're talking about a super quick peek into, okay, is that a head or a butt? That's pretty much what we want to know here. And, statistically speaking, it's almost always a head, almost always. So if you're unsure as the midwife or as the mom, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy to take a look in there if it will help you prepare and make choices and possibly avoid a surprise situation. Although there's plenty of great surprise breech stories out there too. So maybe some people don't want to know. I don't know. Yeah, as for reasons that a baby could be breech, I think the list is probably extremely long. And does each reason have enough behind it to be documented or to be in a textbook? Probably not. But as someone's asking, do you think severe constipation can cause a baby to lay breech? Sure. I totally think that's possible. Really, and this is my experience, Most of the time, to me, it seemed like women who have breech babies later in pregnancy almost always could benefit from body work. So that's usually my first conversation with people. I don't get worked up about a breech baby. I don't, because again, most of them aren't going to come out that way. There's no panic. I mean, unless you discover this at 40 plus weeks, you have time. So my first suggestion is usually just to internally inquire the mom herself if her body's feeling like it could use some work. And by that, I mean, yes, chiropractic can be beneficial, massage. Just think of the stress, the physical stress of a normal pregnancy. I mean, pregnancy is a natural state, yes, but ligaments, muscles, like there's all kinds of things that might get tight or out of balance, pelvic floor, not to mention someone's lifestyle, how they live, how they sit, how they drive. And that's not a blaming thing. It's just some women's bodies are going to hold the tension physically of a pregnancy. And of course, it might be emotional tension, but they're going to hold tension. And some babies are more affected by that. And that's all. I think it's like pretty easy. That's not deep. That's just like common sense, right? So different people take care of their bodies in pregnancies different ways. And if they're feeling like some kind of body work would be helpful, then that's the first step. And just see what kind of changes that produces. If it's a yes, then that mom is usually going to just feel a lot better, And then she may even know in hindsight or say in hindsight, oh yeah, I do feel better. I didn't realize, my back was bothering me, or it's been hard to take my normal walks because blah, blah, blah. I'm feeling so much pressure. So I do think it's beneficial. And chiropractic in particular can take a couple of sessions. So if your baby's breech and that's why you're going and you've never been before, I don't expect the baby to turn overnight. I'm sure they have. But generally, it takes a couple of times for the woman's body, because that's really what it's about. It's not turning the baby. It's providing the woman's body with the opportunity to readjust. And then, if that's what's holding the baby up, the baby can do what it wants to do. So that's, I think, the first place to start, rather than, the panic. Oh, the baby's breech. Oh, we better get an ultrasound. Oh, you better be laying on a tilt board. What good is a tilt board going to do if your uterus and the ligaments are so tight and so constricted? Again, I'm sure all kinds of things have happened, but to me, that's just the natural first step, is like, let's look at what's going on with your body. And then, there's all kinds of other conversations. But again, most of the women I've seen, if their babies are breech in pregnancy, even late pregnancy, they usually turn. So, maybe if I was Dr. Stu living in like a very, very major metropolitan area, I'd see more, obviously he does, right, of the babies that aren't turning. They aren't. But I don't know either, like what most women are being advised of in the more mainstream world. My guess is they're not doing some of these things. And, they're just trying to figure out how to have their babies. So I think that is also legitimate. And if you know you want a vaginal breech birth, then you just try and figure it out in all the ways that you can. Yeah, there's no reason why we shouldn't have these skills. And of course, Megan, we have a whole class in our school, Indie Birth Midwifery School, on breech. So there's a lot of lectures in there from Stu and David Hayes anyway. So you could also wait and see what that's about. But practice is always great. More knowledge is always great for all of us, because the truth is, and this is, also how they market the classes, because breech birth is such a political issue, marketing it as you never know when you're going to need the skill, even doctors. So they're not trained in this anymore. But for those that are more open and possibly receptive, the argument is, what if someone appears, in your delivery room with a butt presenting already out? What are you going to do? And God, I hope it's not a C-section. I mean, there is a point at which that is not possible. So for these rare times when we might be greeted with a baby in that position without really being able to think too hard about it, we want to have the knowledge in our heads already. And we want to have the skills, even if we've only practiced them, not for real, but simulated practice. We want the skills in our hands because the breech baby follows just a normal pattern of the way they come out. So I think I've said this, but I love breech because of that. When you have a head down baby, you can't see what the baby's doing in there. You can't see the rotations. So we learn them and then we just assume the baby's doing them unless, something gets held up. But with breech, it's all on the outside. So if you can learn how that looks in a normal situation, then of course the idea is when it's not as normal, you know that you need to act and you don't waste time and you don't doubt yourself. So all the trainings, I'm for all the trainings. And we were supposed to have one here last year before this stupid virus thing hit. So I was very much looking forward to Rixa and David Hayes coming here for that, but it didn't work out. So maybe some other time. But there is nowadays, I feel like, so much online education. And there's nothing like the real thing. I'm totally with you on that. But when we don't have the real thing happening in front of us a lot, then so many of these teaching videos can be beneficial. Rixa, Breech Without Borders is her site. I think it's .org. But anyway, you'll find it. So many great videos with commentary and slowed down so you can really see what's happening and sped up. So lots of great stuff right now and hopefully in the future to keep us all learning and up to date because it is an important skill, of course, that should not be lost. And I'm not, again, advocating for people to just go out and attend breech births with nothing. But there are just tons of communities where there isn't anyone. There isn't anyone that specializes. And in a lot of communities, if it's highly regulated, then midwives are told they can't. So what do we do with all the women that are wanting a breech birth, a vaginal breech birth, right? I think most of it has to come from them saying, I trust myself. I trust my body. I understand as much as I can about this, and, I'm looking for someone to support me. We don't have prenatal classes. So what we do have is the free indie birth workshop, which I think many of you here have probably seen. And we do encourage our doula students. So the Birth Warrior Project is the name of our doula training. We do encourage our Birth Warrior Project students to take advantage of that material and teach it. And we've had people do that all over the world. So that's the free indie birth workshop. It's a 3-hour thing. We're always changing it for our own personal use. So I'm not totally up on what version is being taught elsewhere. But it's awesome. It's the labor blueprint, teaching your community how birth works, essentially, as a mammal, showing some really awesome birth videos, talking about the politics. That's what's happening in other communities as far as, us sharing our materials. And yeah, prenatal classes, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, but no. Other than Margot and I both have done free, we used to call it midwifery for the people. We've both done that in our respective locations. And that was a day of free prenatal appointments. And I did that for, probably a year. It was cool. I learned a lot, but I didn't ultimately continue it for a bunch of reasons. So yeah, there's that. All right, well, I think that wraps up the birth talk. I did want to mention I'm going to do a new teaching offering here online called Witchery 101. So if you haven't seen that, you can go check out the page. It's just indiebirth.org/Witchery 101. And let's see, my idea there is to offer a couple of live classes, 3 to be exact, on magic. I think we're all magic. I know we are all magic. And I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned, some of the practices that I have in my daily life, and just open up that conversation and that community to women that are wanting to learn that and are resonant with that. So if you want to learn more, you can just go check out that page. Also, the podcast from this week is called a similar type thing, Witchery 101 and Thoughts About the Shot. I combine those two. So if you're curious about that and you feel like you don't know what I would say about that, you can go listen to it. But I talk a little bit more about this witchery class there. I'm super excited about it. I love birth, obviously, but I've been needing something else to get me excited, frankly, like in a different way about sharing with people, rather than the same old things. And so this came in just serendipitously this weekend. And I even said to Margot, like, I'm sorry. I mean, not sorry, but just like we do everything together generally. It's very rare that one of us kind of like offers something without the other. But I just had to go for it. Like, I didn't even have time to talk with her. I just knew I was supposed to do this. And, whether there's 5 people there or 20 people there or whatever, my intention is to share with you and just hold the space of being grateful for all of you and the learning that we can do together and the vibration that we can carry as a group to create some of the change we're looking to see. So yes, Jessica and Jill, I saw your signups. I'm super excited to meet you in real life and to see you. Well, it's not real life, I get it, but on Zoom, to get to know you a little bit and to share in these little offerings together and just see how changed we all are after a couple of weeks. So the class runs in June. It'll be 3 weekends in June or 3 Saturdays. So the first 3 Saturdays in June, I will record them. So if you can't come live or you're in a time zone that doesn't work for you and you want to sign up, it'll still be recorded. I will still share the recordings with you. And my intention is to make like a little class for it on Mighty Networks, just because I want it to kind of be like neat and tidy. And, there'll be the live videos, but there will also be some additional material and links and resources. And I'll just stick it all there in that one class so that you can also go back and, even once the thing is over after the 3 weeks, maybe you want to go back or, maybe you want to check something else out. So that's what I'm working on here. That's my fun project. As if I don't have enough projects going on, but I thought I could squeeze this one in before we move, which looks like it'll be the end of June. So join me for Witchery 101. That'll be another place and a more fun place than this. Like, this is fun and I love that you all come, but I don't get to talk to anyone. I'm just like on this one woman show here. So anyway, I would love to see you there. And there's a couple more weeks to sign up or share it. If there are like other women in your life you want to take it, they don't have to be into birth. They don't have to be in our community. If you feel like they're somebody that would fit, you should totally do it. Yeah, Lauren, I would also love to meet you after all these years. It's amazing that we haven't met in person. So follow the link. If you have any issues, let me know, or questions. And the people that are taking it, if there are things that come to mind that you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to maybe know more about that, let me know. And if I can, I don't know all things. I'll share what I know, but I'll add it to the list and see how it fits in. All right, everybody, I've got some virtual visits here, so I'm going to go. But have a great week. Thank you all for being here with me. I'm so grateful to you. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.